Hey, welcome back to the fuck. What do I? Episode not. Okay, I'm gonna restart. Welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 95, with our very special guest, Prox.
Yeah, Prox.
Prox. Yeah, Prox. You know, Prox almost kind of sounds like the start of like part of the name of a medication. Like, I'm taking they got me on that Proxazine. You know.
Yeah, I guess it's like there's like amoxicillin and like a lot of OX
Yeah, the OX.
things in
Oxygen.
medication, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, yeah, we're 5 episodes away from episode 100. I have no idea what I'm gonna do for that. I think I did something for like a 50 episode special. Maybe I'll do a live episode. Who knows?
Is that what you did for episode 50 live?
I think it was. Not. No, I'll have to go back and check. That would be fun. A live podcast. How has your week been, Prox?
Well, I've been dealing with trying to pass a kidney stone, and I just did this morning, and I'm a bit nauseous, and yeah, it was painful, very painful, yes. I don't recommend anybody getting kidney stones, ever.
Okay, because I was considering, and
Yeah.
but now that you've told me about it, I think I'm gonna double check my options.
Yeah, instead I would get another affliction to your body that isn't kidney stones, to be honest.
What other affliction would you recommend?
I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't, I don't know. Yeah, all of them suck, okay? Just don't do it.
Which
Don't
one?
have any
Which
other
one is that
things.
for you? 6 or 7?
It's like my 5th or 6th. I lost
Okay.
count.
Okay. Do you think you could go for like a world record?
No, because I know of somebody, well, I did get my first stone when I was like 17 or some shit. So it's been like 5 years. So it's like, yeah,
It's like a
you
bar.
know, I've had like 5 or 6, so about a year, every year I have one.
It's like a bar mitzvah.
Yeah, and like it gets quicker and easier after every one, which is really annoying.
It's annoying that it gets faster.
Oh yeah, like there's like crystallization that's left over afterwards that makes it easier for another one to appear afterwards when you still drink and eat chips. Well, yeah, not drink chips, but drink soda in particular, or like a lot of milk-based stuff. There's a different compositions of kidney stone.
Oh,
Like,
sorry. I was just checking the Guinness World Record for the most kidney stones removed from a patient. It belongs to Ashish Rawan Dalepatil in India. Had 172,155 removed from his body in 2009 during a 3-hour operation.
how is that possible? What?
Dude had a lot of calcium.
Dude, what the fuck? How the hell is that possible? I thought it would have been like, so it's an Indian guy, so
Yeah.
I thought it would have been a white guy, because apparently white men are like very susceptible to kidney stones.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, they just are.
Is it like one of those things where like don't like a common genetic trait, like don't Asian people, I want to say there's something about like Asian people and something. Is it like alcohol maybe? Like I know that's so like certain like less or more tolerance, I can't remember, to alcohol. I think less.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, that's like that's like an interesting, it's like your racial traits in Skyrim. Like you have like
Yeah, you're just more susceptible to alcohol.
yeah, you have like
Unfortunately.
racial like resistances. Like I think that would be cool. Like if you were like Korean, you're just like less, you're more resistant to like fire or lightning.
Yeah. People are casting lightning and fire at each other on a daily basis.
If every race had like a Skyrim style racial attribute, what would you think it would be?
I don't know. That's like you'd almost be asking for people to make like suggestions about how races. Yeah, I don't know. It's
No, I'm
getting a
just
little.
saying. No, it doesn't have to be like. Doesn't have to be offensive. It's just like, are Asians like fire resistant? Perhaps.
I don't know. I honestly have no idea where I'd even start with that.
What if like
It again,
Hispanics had like plus 10 move speed or something like that?
Like I said, it could just turn into a slippery slope. So
you want to kill the bit?
I mean that does sound funny though. I feel like you're like just better with swords if you're like I don't know if you're of like Native American descent. You're just better with the sword class weapon, and maces are like, I don't know, specifically if you're from New York. But your gun stat is like really bad.
Your gun stats, yeah, your ranged, your accuracy stat.
Yeah, because the police in New York, like, they have really bad accuracy.
Do they?
Yeah.
That's why they have to make up for it. I guess they just shoot a lot.
Yeah. Something like that, maybe.
Yeah. Well, my week was not particularly eventful, except
happened?
today, when I had my first time driving on a road, first bout of road driving.
Nice. How was it?
It was interesting. It was different. I've been in just a parking lot for the past 3 or 4 sessions, and this was the first day where we were confident enough. Well, my dad was confident enough that we could go out onto the road, and we didn't do anything like very intense. We basically found, we went to rich people country, and in California, specifically Northern California, rich people country is secluded and rural, because what money actually buys you is peace and quiet. So you can just find little side roads that go for maybe like a mile or two, with like some really nice houses, and it's just tucked away, and it's very hilly. The roads are a little, wibbly wobbly, but really pretty. Usually, like, there's like trails connected. It's very densely forested, that kind of thing. So very quiet. We saw some horses. We saw some deer. We saw a turkey. That was cool. Out in the wild, just walking by the road. And it was definitely different from doing parking lot driving. Some things were easier. Like, I was kind of surprised. Like, well, turning, I learned, was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. You can kind of just, because when we were doing parking lot driving, it's like I felt like I really had to concentrate on how the car was moving for every single turn, and like how wide and how wide or how tight it was, and having to make all these like adjustments to like get leeway to make like a turn and like not getting under someone else's way and stuff like that. With this, just going on a road, even like uphill and all that, it's like, oh, I can just kind of like slowly turn the wheel into the turn, and it just kind of goes, and it's fine. Which is it was cool. I think by the end I'd gotten a lot better at it. I still have like a few things that I have to pick up, like how fast I go into certain turns, and like how much I need to slow down or speed up to do certain things, but it's kind of just like a touch thing, honestly. And this is a very like, get out the bingo card kind of thing, but a lot of it reminded me of like learning to play like a fighting game.
There you go, bingo card.
Yeah, bingo card. Like when I make a turn, I was looking, so if I'm making like a left-hand turn, I'm looking like way to the left instead of like to the right, where or sorry, well, it's probably more applicable on the right hand. I'm looking like way to the right when I'm making a right-hand turn, as opposed to the left, kind of, or more to the left, where like another car is actually going to be coming towards me. And the reason for that is because I don't have a super firm grasp on, like, I have to make sure, I have to like visually confirm that I'm turning as much as I need to turn, because it's not just, I don't just know yet, and it's just like a familiarity thing. And it reminds me a lot actually of learning when I first started playing fighting games. I remember I had to learn this with like Skullgirls. There's like a process where at the start you mostly look at your own character and you're looking at yourself, because like you press a button and you don't have it in your mind what it does, so you have to be like, okay, I hit this, that's that move, right? And that's that move, and okay. And then once you get comfortable with playing your character, you end up looking at the opponent, because that's where like the actual information is. And like I hit a button and I know where I am, and I know what I'm doing, and I know how long it takes, and I know what I can do. So it's like, it's that kind of, I'm not worried about it. It's just like it's really just more experience. Like I need to do it more, but it was it's very mentally tiring. Like I focus really hard when I'm doing it, so much so that I can feel my face tensing up, and I have to like manually relax my body, so that it actually gets easier once I relax. Because when I focus really hard, I end up like tunnel visioning on little things, and I end up kind of not really seeing anything in a weird way. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's been interesting. I could see myself maybe going for the driver's test in like a month or two, like after a couple more sessions. I don't think it's actually gonna be too rough. Apparently, I did a lot better than my dad thought I would, so that was cool.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like tunnel visioning when you're like focusing too hard on one little thing, because it just kind of comes with experience with driving in particular. I feel like one of the best times that I was learning driving was like randomly when I was doing parking lot practice. My nan was just like, okay, it's road time, and I was like, oh god, seriously? And she's like, yeah, go on this road, and I'm like, okay, and like I was worried, but then I got really comfortable afterwards, and after about a month of like, you know, in class, like driver school, whatever, I was pretty comfortable with driving at that point, and everything kind of became automatic and whatnot. But nowadays it's like, yeah, I'm like so absolutely comfortable with driving. It's the real hell for me is all about dealing with really unexpected situations and you know, old car problems, like the other day, I think 2 or 3 days ago now, so I turned my car off and the radiator fans were still running, and that's like not a typical thing that my car does, and I'm like, why is that happening? Is there something fucked up? And I was kind of worried that something was fucked up. I disconnected the battery so like the fucking radiator fans wouldn't keep spinning, because if they kept spinning forever, if something was fucked up, it would have like drained my battery, because that's like the thing powering everything electrically. But long story short, it was actually because my radiator was low on coolant, and I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna go get some really quick, and then whatever. So I go and get some, and I'm on my way back, and I'm stuck in traffic, and I'm staring at my temperature gauge the whole time,
Oh
because
god.
I don't want it to like overheat, because I was thinking it was low on coolant, but as soon as I got out of traffic, I like instantly saw my gauge and it was like at 90%, which is like really bad, and I was instantly like, okay, and I like yeeted off the road and immediately started like filling the overflow tank and the radiator with coolant really carefully, because if you open the radiator while the engine's hot, it could spray in your face, and it could literally permanently damage your face.
That's crazy.
So I did it really carefully with the rag and my face away from it. It didn't spray, but yeah, long story short, like if I was just a little bit less vigilant, or if I didn't notice that small detail, I could have like kept driving and like blew my fucking engine because it like overheated. But because I was paying so much attention to detail and everything, I noticed when it got hot. I put the coolant in when I did, which I should have put it in earlier as soon as I got out of the store.
Mhm.
But I'm not like I wasn't too familiar with radiator shit. Now I am, and I think my car is good now. I hope, because the only reason it ran out of coolant was probably because it either burned up over a long period of time or it leaked over a long period of time, and I don't see a leak. So, but anyway, yeah, it like God, car problems is like a whole nother fucking nightmare.
I
But
wouldn't
just
even know what to look for. Like,
yeah, it's definitely about like breaking up all of the systems of a car, like the electric system and like the timing and the engine and the transmission, like breaking it up into groups and kind of realizing what is responsible for what. So when something goes wrong and you're diagnosing it, you're kind of like, okay, maybe it makes sense that when my car is starting to veer on the right on its own, that it's probably not an engine problem.
mhm.
It probably is something to do with suspension that is like turning my car on its own, or like alignment, which anyway, but
Yeah.
not to get confusing, but
Oh
yeah,
no, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Once I get like, I'm probably not, because I can't pay for insurance right now. So I'm not gonna have, even if I get my license, I'm not gonna be able to drive for a bit. But once I do, I probably should like brush up on. I plan to brush up on the actual way that the car works again, like the parts, like you mentioned. Because I think about like, I like to know how my computer, for instance, works, because like that's my thing and I use it all the time. So that even
Right.
if if something goes wrong, even if I don't know exactly what's happening, I can at least make like an educated guess or look at something. Uh, that is, I don't know, for like a, I feel like that should be a necessary thing. Do you think most drivers have an like is that like so the amount of info you know about like your car or like the way that a car functions? Do you think most drivers have that?
um no, and I think it definitely is probably a generational thing. Like you're
Hmm.
probably gonna see more often. Well, I don't know. There's like a huge catch to that, but because it's easy to assume that like older people know more about cars, but there's like a surprising amount of old people who have like no idea how a car actually works. Um, but there are a lot of young guys as well, or like young people who like know car stuff more. It's usually like, not trying to like make like assumptions or anything, but most of the time I see that it's like kind of like dudes who are into cars. And yeah, it's either like younger dudes, older dudes. It kind of depends, but in my opinion, I probably know a little bit more about car stuff than like your average person, but that doesn't mean I can go fix anything with my car. Like it
Hmm.
currently has a transmission problem that I can't really fix on my own. And like when that shit was happening with the radiator, I was like calling a friend who was a mechanic, and I'm just giving him the rundown of what's happening and like asking him questions on like how long it's gonna take to become like safe to drive again and whatnot. I wasn't even thinking about just adding the coolant then and there, because I always thought like adding the coolant while the car is hot is like probably not a good idea because of
Hmm.
that spray thing that I mentioned, because there's like pressure in the radiator. And again, if you open it while the car is hot, you'll get sprayed in the arms and it'll hurt. And if you get hit in the face, it's like it could be like a permanent damage thing to your face. So um, it kind of sounds kind of spooky, but we opened it anyway, and I was careful with a bunch of rags and looking away from the fucking shit while I was opening it. But anyway, yeah, I think I know probably a little bit more than most people, but yeah, I don't want to say that in that like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
better or something. Like it's just, in my opinion, you people should know how to at least like change their tires and like change their oil if they needed to, which is a really simple thing. Like how to jack up your car, or at least how to like identify problems. Not
Yeah.
even fix it, just identify maybe like what it could be. Because if you're gonna go to a mechanic and be like, something's wrong with my car, and they're like, what? And you're just like, I don't know.
Oh.
And they're probably gonna charge you more because they're gonna have to like
Yeah.
diagnose
Actually.
it for longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That
yeah.
reminds me of like there's a subreddit called Tales from IT, and it's all stories to, I guess, continue the PC to car analogy. It's a lot of them are just stories of like, well, I got a call, or I got a service request from like a user, and they're like, it's the computer's bad. And they're like, well, what's wrong with it? I don't know. Okay, well, what's the problem? It's not working. Like, what? It doesn't turn on? No, it turns on. Okay, so what's not working? It's not coming up. And they just spend like 20 minutes in like a circular conversation, and then it turns out it's like, oh, you didn't log into your account. Like, you forgot your password. That's what this was about. You just wasted 20 minutes of time that could have been spent on something like actually important.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, when I have to do like, you know, contract whatever the fuck, like IT stuff for help desk or whatever, I'm gonna expect shit like that and just like a bunch of headaches. Like, great, I can't diagnose the problem because they're not giving me enough information. It's like, you know, and which I think in the future I want to believe that's gonna be less of a thing. Like, I think computer literacy might be on the rise, while car literacy might actually be going down because things are becoming more electronic, and you know, cars are becoming pretty much more electric, more electronic, and there's less things in newer cars to service. It's almost like they don't want you to do your own work on it, which I have my own little problems with, like tech and shit that you can't even maintain yourself. Like, I can't like imagine if you got a computer and then, I mean, you can pretty much get like a Dell pre-built computer, and there's some parts in it that are like Dell proprietary bullshit.
It's the worst.
And they won't even work with like any other parts other than Dell parts, and that, yeah, it's basically they have to service it, or you just have to like junk the system. Like, you have to like completely just start over from another motherboard or something.
Yeah, I've actually heard kind of the opposite about like tech literacy.
Cause you think it's going down?
I don't know going down, but like I think what it was. So from what I've heard, there's a lot of people who are like, say, our age, the Zoomers, who have grown up mostly dealing with like cell phones and devices that, or like, you know, like a starter kind of laptop, and devices that are kind of made like idiot proof, to use very like uncharitable language. Like really, like if you use an iPhone, it just kind of like works itself basically. Like, you don't have to really finagle with it unless you want to like go outside of the little like box that Apple wants you to operate in which case it gets like weird and funky. But like the phone just kind of like, it does just kind of work. I know it's the meme of like, it just works, but it kind of does. Which is why they're so popular, but it kind of leads to this effect where like apparently there's a lot of people who just don't really understand, like young people our age, who just don't understand like what are the different parts that make up, or even beyond that, like from like the hardware angle, even forgetting that, like how to do basic troubleshooting, or how to like just like how to, what kind of, how to perform even sometimes like basic functions. I've heard stories about like young people who don't know how to do that, or like do anything like related to like basic kind of network functions, like setting up a router or something. I'm like, huh. And I think it's because technology has become so mainstream, this kind of technology, that in order to do that, it's been made really easy for people, so that it's once a lot of the software just kind of operates itself in many ways, and the hardware for the most part. Like, if you have entirely grown up using like Apple products, you haven't even had to think about the inside of your thing. Like, you can't even open it. You see the inside of a Mac, something's gone very wrong. And And you, even if you take it to like the Genius bar, I mean, I'm sure you're aware that like the standard procedure is like, oh, we got to replace it. You got to pay for a $300 replacement for like a really easy fix kind of thing. So I think like for some people, like I guess you and I would be considered kind of techie people. It's probably gone up. Like I feel pretty confident that I can like navigate anything Windows based. I've had to like use my brother's like Apple laptop, and it's like I'm like, where's the files? How do I find stuff?
Yeah, I can't really navigate Mac very well. Like it's just Windows, and then like I have some experience with Linux, and you're probably never going to run into somebody who's using Linux who doesn't know what they're doing with Linux.
That's they don't exist. I could probably figure out. I've never used Linux. I could probably figure out how to use. I imagine like the file or like how things are organized is honestly probably pretty similar to how something like Windows works, just with like a slightly different way of going about things. Actually, doesn't Linux have like, you can just choose a totally different file management system?
I mean, you can just choose entirely different operating system like branches, like, you know, Arch and Mint, and there's a lot of others, and they probably deal with directories and shit differently, and how they do permissions and stuff, like who can access what and what you can do, what each permission group can do with like files, if they can execute the files or they can delete it or whatever. Like you can, there's a lot of flexibility with Linux. Like you can pretty much get it to do a shitload of things, but that amount of choice, like people just are not used to it. Like even some people can't even use Windows because they're not even used to the amount of choice you have in Windows, which in my opinion is nowhere near the amount of choice you have in Linux. But Mac and iPhone, that's like basically like, nah, you're giving up like a shitload of choice.
It's like a walled garden.
Yeah, and I feel bad for like, I don't know, like people like my mom who like say that they know they should get out of the Apple ecosystem, but they're stuck in the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like they have multiple devices and they have like iTunes bullshit, so if they switch to like Android or Windows, they're pretty much kind of like quote unquote losing that, even though I've told her many times that you can acquire all of that in different ways, but
it's just you got to do a bunch of headache work. You could do it. It's just annoying as fuck. I think on purpose.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It'd take me a little bit to like migrate everything from theirs over, but like it would be possible, I think. Like just getting the replacement or getting the music and all that, like you can get that, like, and just it's like nothing happened. It just took me a day to like migrate all this shit because I just know how and I have the patience and I know where to go, and that's about it. Yeah.
For me, like Linux has always been really interesting because I love customizing. Like I customize all my stuff pretty much. Visually, I'm an options freak. I love digging through settings and stuff. And Linux has always been really interesting to me for that reason. My one hang up and the big reason I haven't moved over is just compatibility issues with certain programs maybe not working or not translating over correctly. Specifically like games. Like sometimes you just can't play a game through Steam on Linux. It's just not compatible. And there's like, I think it's called Photon, which is sort of like, I don't think emulator is really what it is, but it's like a thing Valve developed to better, I guess, translate games from like Windows to Linux. But it's not like perfect and it doesn't cover everything. So I'm like, if there was some kind of like universal solve, if there was like some Linux distro that was like 99% compatible with like everything Windows, I might like pretty seriously consider moving over to it, because I probably like take a bit, but I would be really interested in actually being able to get that level of freedom over my operating system. And I mean, Windows, I mean, you talking about. Remember when you talk about like choice? Do you remember when I mentioned to you? I don't know if I ever talked about it on this podcast, but I had a little event where I discovered that my whole system freaked out because Windows had removed my AMD graphics drivers in an update overnight.
Oh yeah, you told me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really fun, and I had to like reinstall the software, and it was just it was so annoying. So that happened to me again. It's like, what the fuck? So what I did was, you can go into have you ever used like Windows group permissions?
I haven't, no.
Most
But yeah, there's a
people
lot of weird archaic menus.
Yeah, most people will never have to, and I it's a blessing. So I had to go in and I've done like registry edits and stuff to fix shit that Windows turns on that I want off. Group permissions is sort of similar. I had to like go in and turn off the ability for Windows to change drivers in updates. So I had to like switch it off automatic, basically. And I haven't had the issue since. So I think that did the trick. But like, I'm at least satisfied enough with the amount of options that I have with Windows, especially 10. I don't want to fucking move over to 11.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hold on to 10 as long as I can.
Yeah, I plan on chilling with 10 until they end support in like 2026 or whatever the fuck their schedule is or whatever. But yeah, I've worked with a lot of archaic, weird Windows menus like msconfig and task scheduler, and I've even had to mess with PowerShell a few times, which something is very wrong when you're having to use PowerShell. And I was gonna say that the main I don't blame Linux or like any of the branch developers or whatever for games not working, because it really kind of lies within like the developers of those games and those programs. And I feel like the only way for there to be more support and more programs that use Linux is more people using Linux, basically. If more people use Linux, they're probably going to develop support for Linux. But at the moment, it's like, I don't think Linux even accounts for like 2% of people on a computer right now.
Yeah, it's
not
also
counting Android, but
I remember there was like, I think I saw Linus Tech Tips did like this 5 or 6 part series where he basically switched over to Linux for like a month or something, and just kind of like tracking his progress of like learning how to use it and all that, and then kind of like a final wrap up. And they mentioned in that video that porting your games to Linux is a pain in the ass. That there was like one studio or something that said that like 80% of their support tickets or like bug fixes were just for the Linux version of the game. And it makes up, again, like you said, like 2% of the PC market, or OS market, I guess. So it's like an incredible amount of work because there's so many different distros and weird like edge case issues that you could have with a game that a lot of devs just don't even bother. And it's so much work for like not a lot. So it's like this, it's like this weird vicious cycle where I feel like a lot of people don't move to Linux because of compatibility issues like me, and then compatibility issues don't get fixed because there's not enough priority for them because there aren't enough people on Linux, and it just repeats and repeats and repeats.
Yeah.
It would be cool.
Yeah, I think the biggest solution for now is just like, I think Mutahar does this, but yeah, pretty much like he has a Windows emulation thing like on his Linux system, and like he just runs games through that and like streams and whatever.
That's pretty janky, that's what he does. But I guess it does work.
Yeah, I think if you allocate the resources properly, you do lose a little bit of performance. going through Linux and then emulating Windows
Hmm.
instead of just using Windows. But um, I don't know. To some people, it's worth it depending on like what they're doing. Because with Linux, I feel like you absolutely have to have like a use case. Like you absolutely need to know what you're trying to do with your system, and from there you can pretty much choose whatever distro you want, like Mint or something. Because every one of them, like they have different. I've heard they have just different utility and different use cases that people would choose them over the other for.
Yeah, I
And
think.
I personally don't have anything that I need Linux for, so I don't use
Yeah,
it.
that's the other thing is that I've, from what I understand, a lot of like Linux distros are kind of they're kind of skewed towards like developers. Like developers love it. But like I don't write code, and I don't code thing. I don't program stuff. So like that element of it that it might be kind of catered towards doesn't really appeal to me. I think genuinely the only thing that would make me switch to Linux right now would be, well, I guess this technically wouldn't be right now, would be if Windows 10 reaches end of life support and 11 is still 11 and they haven't moved on and there's no option and I don't want to be stuck on an OS that's not getting like security updates. I would probably just move to Linux. Like that's the only thing that would kind of I would feel forced to because I just really don't want to go to 11.
Yeah, I've heard 11's like fine and all, but I hear it's just heftier to run, and I have no idea why. It doesn't look at all any more impressive, and if anything, the menus look more dumb. And I don't know, 10, in my opinion, was just a direct upgrade for me from 7, and like a huge upgrade from 8. Like
Oh God,
Jesus,
yeah.
8 sucked. I really didn't like 8.
10 I feel like 10 is more like the just a further progression of 8.1. Did you ever try out 8.1?
I had 8.1. I didn't
Yeah.
have 8.
Okay, yeah. If you didn't like 8.1, 8 was like 10 times worse. 8.1 was such a huge improvement. It
Yeah, and they
was
still had the annoying like menu that covered
oh,
the whole screen.
yeah, the
Start menu.
freaking Windows tablet interface that they tried to put onto absolutely everything. Uh, God, what a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know what was cool? Windows Phone. I kind of wish Windows Phone had stuck around. I don't know if you've
I
ever like dug into that.
um no, and I thought that I thought there was Windows phones
Yeah, there
out
were.
there.
There were. The
Oh, are they
Windows
not
had
a
their
thing
own.
anymore?
They basically I think made like one or two models, and then the problem with it was it was funny enough it was compatibility. It was just they just didn't have enough apps. It took them like I think like 6 months to get Netflix or something like that. I don't think they ever got like a version of Twitter. It just took them like forever to get things that people wanted to use on their phone, but like the operating system itself, I've watched a lot of videos on it. The OS itself was really cool. Like really interesting layout. It was using that kind of like Metro grid design from like that they started with Windows 8, but it actually worked on like a small phone screen. There was like a lot of cool things that they did with it. It was really well optimized. I'm like, man, I wish this would be such a cool OS to use. I wish it had taken off. I just kind of, uh, just kind of have to go back to Android, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can't personally see or feel the appeal of an iPhone, like Apple products. I just can't do it.
That's
I
so,
really,
yeah,
I don't know.
that's so funny because I had like my brother said the exact opposite. Like when I changed my phone, he just asked me. He's basically been on the Apple train for forever. He's pretty much just used Apple like iPhones and laptops and stuff. Uh, Pretty much his whole life. And he asked me like, "Oh, what phone did you get?" And I was like, "I just kind of got like a mid-tier Android phone." And he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, he said basically what you said to me, but in reverse. He goes, "I just cannot understand an Android phone." He's like, "I can't understand the appeal of it." I was like, "Really?"
God, I got so much like music shit without I mean, yeah, I would never do this. This is all a theoretical joke, right? But people, got a lot of free music, a lot of like unsupported, like basically custom apps that would do certain things. Like for example, for a little bit, I had this game called SAS Zombie Assault 4. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's kind of an old school, now it is at this point, like Ninja Kiwi game. They're more known for Bloons Tower Defense. But SAS Zombie Assault 4 was very pay to win. They really wanted you to pay. They wanted you to get a lot of Google Play money and like buy a bunch of shit in their game. I had this app, this custom app that would basically spoof Google Play purchases
Wow.
and make it seem as if I did, but I didn't. And like I would just, yeah, I would
That's
basically get a bunch of those loot things for free and then just cheat the game, basically.
that's crazy. It was like a
My
hex editor or
argument,
something.
it must have been like something along the lines of like a hex editor or like I'm not honestly sure how it worked. I was like a dumb teenager, but yeah. And this is
That's
all
sick.
just a joke, by the way. This all didn't
This
actually
this
happen.
all happened in Minecraft.
Yeah, it all happened in Minecraft. Like the guy who modeled an Area 51 base or whatever,
yeah.
like or a military base in Minecraft, something like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, and my argument was like, okay, well, stop making games pay to win. Like, stop putting pay options everywhere because there's gonna be people who use that program, and they're just gonna like cheat leaderboards. Like, I could do that in like Subway Surfers. They have this thing where you can basically infinitely play and get like infinite score as long as you keep like buying revives.
Oh
So if somebody had that program, they could pretty much like easily cheat their way to like the top of global leaderboards and shit. It's like, you know. And I wasn't trying to do that. I didn't care. I just wanted to have fun with the game and not dump like fucking hundreds of dollars into it. Like I was just experimenting and being a dummy, but all in Minecraft. But yeah, I don't see the appeal of Android because like no, but
well, because a lot of people
Apple,
don't care about that. For a lot of people, they don't care.
yeah, they just want to buy all their music. They want to like, yeah, they want to spend a bunch of money. Like Android's for poor people, you know.
Well, I was watching this one video one time. I went down a rabbit hole a few months ago of watching like switching to like Apple OS or switching to like Android/Windows OS kind of thing. Like people just, what's it like to try out this OS that I haven't really ever really tried out. And I remember there was this one lady who was switching from like a MacBook to like a Windows 11 laptop or something like that. And her response was like, she was like, oh, where's my, basically like, where's all like the fun, nice looking aesthetic stuff that like Apple gives you, right? And she's like, why can't I do this with the app things? And why can't I do that? And I forgot the very specifics, but I remember it being this like stuff that I was like, why? Who cares about that? Why would I? But I realized to some people, I'm going to say it, to normal people, Prox, that stuff's important, and they don't need to have like 500 APK files on their mobile device that generates fake Google Play purchases in Minecraft and is like a universal ad blocker and all this random crap. Or a lot of people don't even realize that like even people who use Android phones don't even realize that like you could just download another app store if you want. You can just do that. I did that. There's like a Mega Man mobile game called Mega Man X Dive, and I was like, oh sweet, I want to check it out. There wasn't an English version on the Google Play Store for like 6 months or something like that, but there was an English version in other countries. There was like an full English translation and everything, but you had to get the Thai version of the app, So I had to like download this other app store that's like an Asian one, and then I could download the Thai. I like create like a Thai based account over there, and then download it from there, and then I could play the game in English.
That's funny.
Yeah. Ended up dropping it because I didn't like it that much, but I went through it. I went through the the process.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like, that's just a very niche case of like,
Oh,
you could
absolutely.
spoof Google Play purchases, but because I'm just thinking of how actually universal that can potentially be to like do all that and whatever. But anyway, besides that, like, just the different app stores and well, you can basically use it more like a computer than you can like an Apple phone,
Oh yeah, which is what I like about it.
right? Like, you have more choice. Like, overall, in my opinion, you have way more choice, and some people just don't really know what to do with all of that choice. Sometimes they just, you know,
Yeah.
want their little corner of stuff that they're limited to, and that they're comfortable with that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, there's this.
I'm not trying to talk shit. It's just,
Oh yeah, no, sure.
whatever.
That's just our different use cases. There's like a
Yeah.
another story about that. There's a video that I've been like trying to get around to, but it requires me to like record stuff off my phone. And I was like, it would be really nice if I could just like record on like OBS or something. Like record my phone on OBS. Can I do that? Yes, I can do that. And you know how? Someone made a program on GitHub that lets you, that if you like connect your Android phone via USB, you can like run this exe. It'll like install an app on, or like it'll install a program on your computer and the phone, and then you just run both while it's connected via USB, and it's like a screen sharing functionality. Basically, it'll cast the sound and visual in like a little window on my computer, and then I can capture that window on OBS, and it all works seamlessly. So like,
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
yeah, I'm like, this is great. And it's you can even like manipulate, you can like use the mouse to like click stuff on your phone. It was really cool, and I was like, awesome. You could someone's made a program for it, basically.
Right. And like, a part of me, the reason I like, that Google Play meme in Minecraft thing is because in high school I was really bored teenager. I kind of did mobile gaming meme because, like, yeah, of course, like, you're stuck in school, and we had like decent smartphones like in the mid 2010s, but nothing like you have now. Like, fucking Christ, it's like 8-core processor phones and shit that like that. Like, I don't know, it just seems like teenagers have like $1,000 phones and shit. I think I had like a few $100 like Samsung meme. It was a decent phone, could run the shit at the time.
Yeah, that's crazy to me that there's phones that are worth $1,000, and that's about what I paid to build my PC. Like,
yeah, it's nuts, dude.
look at this giant box on my desk, and like there's a tiny little brick that is apparently worth the same amount, and like, is that even comparable in power? Or I mean, probably not, but
in terms of like usefulness, like, absolute, like,
yeah.
Especially because if it's an Android, especially because you can literally get a program like BlueStacks on your computer that can just, you can literally just do all Android stuff on that. Like, it can pretty much do just about everything that phone can, but there are exceptions. Like, the mobility of it can be a huge plus.
That's true. Yeah, I wasn't thinking
And
about
yeah, so most of the time your computer, where you'll be most of the time, at home, good enough. But in those times you're traveling or whatever, or you're at school, who the fuck knows, right? It could be more useful. Like, you could be spending more time at your work and school than you are at home,
Yeah.
So maybe the mobility's worth.
We actually had a conversation about like mobile gaming, or I guess gaming on the go, on the last episode, because from my little bubble, I could not see the purpose. I'm like, when do I leave the house? I don't care. But I care about having a handheld. Did you ever have a handheld growing up?
I had a Game Boy and a DS, like a regular DS.
Yeah. Did you have like the original Game Boy or like Game Boy Advance?
I did have access to a Game Boy, and I had a Game Boy Advance with the Pikachu skin. Like it has and that's apparently worth quite a bit now,
Ooh.
but I don't have it anymore. I still have my original DS, but like the stand that holds the top screen up is broken, so
Oh
I
yeah.
have to like hold the screen up myself with my fingers or something.
Oh yeah. Same. Cause it's so funny because someone left a comment. I think Ryan, who you know from when he was in your stream chat the other day
Right.
when I was on your stream, commented about how like uh handheld games are also just like really cheap. Like they're a lot cheaper. Well, not really cheap, but they're a lot cheaper than like full console games. It's just like a cheaper option overall. And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, that's actually totally true because we didn't have a lot of money for games growing up. And but a DS game is going to be like what, $30-$40, something like that. So it's way more affordable to get. Uh, so like that's I guess the was part of the appeal, and it's kind of interesting now that like handheld games just kind of don't exist anymore. There are no handhelds right now. It's all like phones.
I mean, yeah, it pretty much, yeah, phones kind of did replace handheld like devices, didn't they? I was gonna say like maybe in regions like Japan or something, maybe they have some shit, but we would have probably heard about it. Like if there was
Yeah,
handheld, whatever. It's probably phones as well, honestly.
yeah. I think mobile gaming really took off in Japan in the last like 10ish years. I just still remember like uh interestingly enough, like flip phones held on in Japan for a lot longer than like in the US, for instance, because there wasn't a really good Japanese touchscreen keyboard for a while. But the ones that were on flip phones were pretty serviceable. And I think starting with like I don't know in like 2010s, maybe like late 2000s, they had like figured out how to properly implement like a kanji keyboard,
Uh,
and that eventually led to like the adoption. But that's like you'll even see in like anime, for instance, from like 2013 or something. They're still using flip phones. It's like yeah, because it took a while for everyone to switch over. So that's like kind of like a funny thing. And actually, when you brought up how like other countries, I thought you were gonna say, um, uh, uh, this is mean, but poorer countries tend to just kind of like be a little bit behind in terms of like gaming console stuff. So interestingly enough, to go to like a lot of South American countries have big retro scenes. They have like big retro gaming scenes because a lot of people, even like our age, would like grow up with like N64 and stuff like that because it's just slower for stuff to come out. Like here, it's always like the new hotness. Everyone's got the new hotness, unless it's like a PS5 that no one can get their hands on. But if you're in a country that has like huge taxes on importing like a new game console or something like that, like Pakistan, for instance, uh, yeah, you're gonna be using like a console from like the 90s or something, or like a PS2 or something like that. So it creates this kind of interesting, different gaming culture that I think like you and I are probably used to.
yeah. No, that's a man. Yeah, I think people were probably theorizing about that in like the mid 2010s. Like I didn't have a smartphone until I was about like 15, so like halfway through high school. Before
Yeah,
that, I
same.
had like a shitty slide phone or whatever. But yeah, it seems like now like I don't know, I've seen like really young kids with smartphones like who are like 4 or some shit
Oh yeah, that's
at McDonald's, which is insane.
that's
That's
crazy.
yeah, that's like a whole topic of its own. Like if that should even really be.
I
the
don't.
possibility. Like
I
having
don't.
unlimited
Yeah.
access to information when you're that young
I
is
don't.
kind of dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd do that, which is like weirdly kind of hypocritical because I had basically unrestricted access to the internet when I was a kid, and like I guess I turned out fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I was a parent. I'd probably be more present. I think that's what I would do. I'd try to be at least more involved with what my kid was doing on the internet. Um, that's probably the
Right.
best like middle ground because I don't think like if you're like a kid, like even elementary school age, I think 4 is a little fucking young to give someone like a $1,000 piece of technology that you can access like live leak on. Uh,
Yeah.
that's like a little young. Like we can stick with the encyclopedias for a bit.
Yeah,
If you
maybe
need to look
perhaps.
something up. But like yeah, I mean once you're in like elementary school, you should probably start also just for general skills, you should start just teaching your kid how to use a computer. Like I had a computer class when I was in school. And we were taught like basic tech literacy and like how to use a word processor and like a PowerPoint thing. Um, like they actually tried to teach us that stuff, and I actually think it was pretty useful. That's you want to know the funniest thing? That computer class, they taught me how to use GIMP because it's free, and
Nice.
I still use GIMP to make all my thumbnails.
Nice. Yeah,
Every
I know how to use GIMP, yeah.
every thumbnail, every time I have like a meme that I make, I always use GIMP. And it's so I think it's better like people meme on it. People will goof on GIMP, and I think it's fair, but it is a for being totally free, it's a pretty nice package, and I'm just so used to it at this point that like I just like using it. I could probably just pirate uh like Photoshop, in Minecraft.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like learning a whole new thing just to kind of get back to where I like. I'm perfectly happy with what I know already. But anyway. Right, we're talking about teaching kids how to use computers. I feel like there's like two options of like, okay, you get like, or two extremes where just unrestricted access. Fuck it, we ball. Fuck it, we ball. Uh, or there's like nothing, and some kids get nothing. And I think you could kind of have a middle ground, which is like just try to be present and like, hey, watch YouTube with your kids, or like see what they're looking at and talk to them about it. And then like slow like here's how to responsibly use the internet, I guess. Kind of like there's probably some way to ease a kid into that so that like yeah, they know how to use a computer, they know how it works, they know how the internet works, and they also know how to like stay safe in terms of like just basic safety stuff and privacy. uh yeah, there's probably I think the difficulty is that like the internet's crazy, and even from the time that I think you and I were growing up, like I was a kid in like the late 2000s. That's when I really started. That's when I consider like, oh, I'm conscious now and like forming memories. It's like 7. It's like the late 2000s. And when I think about the internet or like YouTube, for instance, from there to now, like it's crazy different. It's so wildly different. The whole ecosystem. Uh, and like I don't know, like my parents don't know how to they didn't grow up with that. That's like how would a parent my parents grew up in like the 70s and 80s when there was like 5 channels on the television. Like what are they supposed to say? Like I remember when I was dating or trying to do online dating, and I was having all these struggles and stuff, and it's I can't even talk to my dad about it because like what the fuck, he's never done this. This is like a
Yeah.
completely alien concept. He's like, what is he supposed to say? It's not his fault. It's just how it works. Like I don't even like being a parent today. we might have an easier time because we've kind of grown up with it more. But being a parent to like right now, who was born in like the 70s or the 80s, would like it must be such a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't think some of them even try. They
Yeah,
just
I
don't understand.
yeah,
They're
just
like,
fuck
yeah,
it.
okay.
Like it probably
Whatever.
terrifies them. This, I wonder what the knock-on effects of that are.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to be honest, I don't know. They're at their young age, like if I had a kid and all that, I probably would have them have a computer at home,
Yeah,
but probably not like a smartphone for a while. But
yeah.
I don't know. I would get them into some Steam games, like check out Half-Life and like all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And especially, I think the pinnacle of their gaming experience would be Divine Cybermancy.
Are we gonna transition into this now?
Oh yeah, because it's like pretty much the best game ever.
Are we gonna? So,
Yeah.
so, okay. Before we start that, I will say I would actually look forward to doing that if I had a kid. I would actually look forward to like playing games with them and showing them games and stuff. Like this seems like a really fun thing. Like my parents didn't understand games really, so that was just kind of a thing that I had to grow up myself on. I never really played games with my brother, for instance. Like sometimes, but not very often. But I think that would be a cool experience to have with like a child if I had one. But anyway,
Right,
Divine Cybermancy. So for people who don't watch Prox's stream, I was on it the other night, and the way this started was Prox, you are really into source engine stuff, like source engine games and mapping and all that.
Yeah, and Cyberpunk, so...
And cyberpunk stuff. So I was like, oh, there's a game that I'm doing a video on called Divine Cybermancy. It's a source engine game. It's like a Half-Life 2 multiplayer mod, basically, like a really extreme one, basically. And it's like a whole cyberpunk thing. And, it's really interesting. You might be, interested in it. So that was back when I was making that video. And you've had it on, I think you've owned it for a little bit, but never played it. And the other night, you were like, we were on Discord and you were like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to stream tonight. And I said, why not? Why don't we do Divine Cybermancy co-op together? And you were like, that's a great idea, Tygan. This will be so fun.
Yeah, and then began the end.
The end. Do you want to summarize? I'm really curious, actually. So we played through the entire game. It was like a 7-hour stream.
Yeah, I need to edit that together and re-upload it on my second channel, but which I'm probably gonna do tomorrow. I'm probably gonna do all my like little dumb bullshit I've been putting off tomorrow for YouTube stuff, and then start writing Tuesday again, because I've been dealing with kidney stone bullshit that has been arguably hurting so much that I can't really focus on anything else. But
Cool.
Anyway, yeah, I got that over with, but. Yeah, I need to re-upload that, and
it was a funny-ass stream, from my perspective.
Yeah, it was... Oh, man, I don't know.
Explain... I want to hear... Because now we have a moment. I want to hear your thoughts on the game.
I guess it should be more appropriate for me to go in order chronologically of what I was thinking. Yeah. So when I heard about this game... I heard about Cyberpunk source game, and then it's massive it's not massive multiplayer. I don't know why I said that. It's multiplayer. It can be like it's like 60. It can have like many people in a server, but anyway,
32-player co-op.
Yeah, so it can be fucking kind of massive, but not in an MMO sense. But anyway, so, and I saw screenshots, and I was like, okay, this actually looks pretty good. Like, I saw screenshots. I saw like the bustling cities and shit, and like. I never watched any gameplay, and I kind of had good expectations. Like, its source at Cyberpunk, it wasn't made that long ago, like 2011, 2012, some shit like that. So 2011. It's kind of a later source mod. So I was kind of imagining that it was pretty decent. Like, it came out way after Dystopia, which is a Cyberpunk mod that I play on the regular, and I'm actually going to play in a tournament for that game.
Oh.
in a, soon. But anyway, I
Yo,
thought like,
actually,
yeah,
is the tournament gonna be live streamed?
it probably will. Yeah, like
Yo,
the
I'll do a
matches.
restream of it with my chat,
Damn.
and we'll watch it together
Oh
at this
shit. Okay.
at the same time. Unless they're gonna take it down or something.
No, they won't.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Like, cause I don't know how many teams. It's like, it's kind of like a pick your own team thing, and I'm a team. I guess I'm like a team lead, basically, and like I'm trying to form that shit. But anyway, I thought that this game was going to be pretty good. Like I had high expectations, and then so the first 30 minutes of my stream is not playing the game. It is us trying to figure out how to play with one another in this game, and I tried to make my own server thing, have him connect. It didn't work out. We just had to use a public server 30 minutes later that had like 120 ping, 150 ping. Not great, but it was good enough. And I didn't think it would be that bad. There was some input lag, but whatever. I'll excuse that for the server ping or whatever. But anyway, we get into it, and like already it's kind of like we're running through these huge environments, like this huge hub area. And, we're talking to people. I don't really understand the story. It already seems like pretty weird, like foreboding in a way, or I don't know. I don't know how to really put this into words, but like you hear the first part of a story and you're already just put off by it. Like I don't really understand. Like it's as if they're introducing all these different factions that they haven't even really established yet. And you're just supposed to be like, okay, I guess we'll learn more about this later, and I hope I remember all of those names for when they try to give context for them. So cool, okay, whatever. In the first few missions, it was like, yeah, this UI is fucking weird. I don't really get all this. I'm just gonna use like decent guns and everything, and like immediately from there, it was kind of like basically my expectations would go lower and lower and lower, like exponentially, because the gunplay is bad, the enemy spam is very prevalent, the hacking system is rudimentary at best. Like it's very weird. I understand it, but it's just
so weird.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid, and it's kind of like a weird like it's like paper rock scissors, except there's like
no, it's
a little
like
bit more
Final Fantasy 4, because I guess that's your frame of reference. Combat. It's like action.
I mean, sure.
Action. What is it? Action turn battle with like your turn counter bar filling up, and then you can do a thing, and it's like RPG combat. It's so weird.
It kind of is. I guess for some people who don't understand it, they might see it as a paper rock scissors thing of like, I don't know, I'm just gonna spam this, and if it doesn't work this time, then I'll try spamming something else or whatever. Like I mean, you have to attack at some point, but anyway, for me, yeah, it pretty much was like really fast, like not really tense as much as it was just annoying. Like, okay, I have to be on the money. I can't waste a single second. But that's like a whole nother topic. But just to get into the rough general meme again, slowly it was becoming like a little bit weird and tedious and kind of funny. Like it was easy to like laugh at all the dumb bullshit. But then
like getting sniped by rockets from halfway across the map by invisible enemies.
Right, like that's where it started becoming like, okay, this isn't kind of funny anymore. This is like kind of a pain in the ass. Like, why did they actually
that early? That's
idea?
basically like the first actual level.
Yeah, so like then that was kind of probably the warning sign. That was like, yeah, okay, this is what they consider to be like a beginner level thing. What are they going to consider to be the later level? And we learned, or at least I learned. It's these like insta-kill sniper enemies that look similar to everyone else who can like one-shot you while running with like a squad of people. It got pretty tedious and annoying in the middle, but by the end, about near the desert sections and stuff, I was like so fed up with this game. Like absolutely.
Mars, dude. Mars is such a gauntlet.
It's like, I don't know. It's not like a gauntlet in the sense it's like, it's like Quake where you have to like, really be vigilant and all that, and one mistake could kill you, like sure, but that shit was like, you had to be on the money times 10. Like you had to account for enemies spawning behind you and multiple enemies that you couldn't see, and
Dude,
it's just a
that
lot of spam, a lot of random bullshit happening,
that
chaos.
one area that we were stuck on for so long, where there was like two cyber demons that intermittently respawn, and then like the insta kill like railgun guys who would sometimes be there, and then like the helicopters that shot like missiles and shit would sometimes spawn, like, and there'd be two of them. It was just it never ends. It just never ends.
Yeah, and I'd have to like sit and think about it more, but like what I can remember from that stream is just it started off funny and stupid, but then it turned into like me absolutely like regretting.
Oh, you were miserable. And it was
Yeah, I got
hilarious.
really salty, especially when we got to this one guy where we had to like do a dialogue tree for him to get a certain ending, and like the shit was mistranslated, and I kept hitting the wrong thing.
So, oh god, that's so okay. So for people who I don't even know if I'd mentioned this in my video. So like the last level where you like really make like a split is the Mars mission in like what ending you can get. So you can do, there's like there's three main endings: the one with the mentor, the one with Romana, and then the one with where you side with the Federals. And the Federal ending I thought was a lot shorter. So I said, hey, if we talk, there's a guy in this building, if we talk to him, we'll get the Federal ending, which is like really, it's a lot shorter. But you have to like talk to him and like agree to like, yeah, you basically have to do a little dialogue thing and to side with him. So because the whole stream I've been letting Prox do all the dialogue stuff because he's streaming and only one person can see that stuff, whoever happens to be talking to the NPC. So I let him do it. He goes up and talks to the Federal like guy, whoever did that, to that NPC. And the game frequently, because it's an immersive sim, it tries to give you several different ways to solve problems or to accomplish missions. It'll usually be like assassinate a target, hack a thing, or negotiation will usually be like the three options that they give you. The negotiation one, I mentioned this in my video, is basically useless because the game is created by French developers and it is really poorly translated. So the dialogue makes zero sense. Like I think what it was, because I did it the second time, is the guy says like, hey, do you want to join us? And you get three options. One of them is like, no way. One of them is yes. And one of them's like, oh yeah, sounds great. And you picked, oh yeah, sounds great. And the guy's like, you sound suspicious. Fuck you. And then like fucking turns hostile or something. And you're like, what the fuck? That kind of thing is all over the game where it's like, did they okay, like in the original French, does this make more sense? It has a French translation, I'm assuming, right? Did I double check this? Hold up. Divine Cybermancy French translation? Is that the original? French language option. Wait, no way. Is there... Oh my god. The game was originally developed in English.
So what?
It was created by French people in English and then apparently translated back into French poorly. There's this person on like the Steam forums saying that there's like 1 billion like typos and unfinished sentences and fragments and shit. Let's see. Even with my limited knowledge of French, the dialogue seemed nonsensical. What the fuck? There is no... Hey, my video comes up in the Google results. That's wild to me. The game said, I don't see any way to change the language. Was it made in English? Wow. That's crazy. So it wasn't even like it was poorly translated. They went for English primarily, and then it came out like that. That's so crazy to me. That's so funny. So like, yeah, any negotiating is like basically you're just spitting in the wind of like, is this gonna work? Does this dialogue option work? Because a lot of them it'll be like, I can imagine someone who has like a tenuous or a shaky grasp on English not being able to translate the right nuance into the language. Like, I think the idea is that like, oh, you're too enthusiastic, it's suspicious. But like they didn't translate it in that way, where it's actually apparent through text, through the option, that like you're not. Also, actually, now that I think about it, there's like no reason. It's basically just like a trap. I'm thinking about like in the whole scale of like the dialogue system, options like that. That's like you're too enthusiastic. That's just like a trap for the player.
That.
Like you're not. It's like, okay, there's the yes and the no option, but then there's like the fake yes option. Why? That's like a very constant theme with the game of there's every single thing, there's something attached to it, no matter how interesting or good it is, there's something attached to it that makes it like fucking miserable.
Just, there's baggage to every interaction in that fucking game.
That's such a good way to put it.
There's always some like ulterior thing that you're not in on, and you have to like fall into it to really know. It's like there's a fucking hole in like every. It's like it's like you're driving on the street and there's a fucking pothole that you can't see around like every corner. It's like, how are you even supposed to know? Like it's just dumb. I don't know. It's supposed to be realistic, bro, because like he just interpreted it, you know, like weird, and you were yeah, that's life, dude. You're just supposed to like fall for that, bro. That's the game. Like that's not fun. That's fucking irritating.
So
I don't know.
Your final thoughts when we finished the game. Pretty negative.
Yeah, pretty negative, and even more so because it's very positive on Steam.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So I guess the next part of the story is when that stream made me interested in playing the game again, because I was like, okay, people have told me that there's there's a gem underneath all the dirt, right? At the core of this game, there is a really cool, fun, open sandbox system. Let me try to find it. Let me actually plunge into it. So I put a few more hours into the game. I haven't like fully replayed it, but I basically found like a custom map that just feeds you levels essentially, and like research options and all that. Leveled up a bunch, got most of the like PSI spells, bought like the strongest guns in the game, got some upgrades. I'm like, okay, now let me just do like the random missions. And excuse me. So after a couple hours of just playing the game now at like a, I guess, slightly more end game build, I can safely say that when I finished my video, I was very ambivalent towards where I was like, I've only played it once. I can't make a final judgment on it because I've heard all this stuff. I can only be honest about what my first time experience was like with it and what my experience was like, but I'm not going to speak to anything else. So now, having played it, I can safely say that I think that game fucking sucks. I think it blows hard, and I'm sorry to the heads out there, but okay, I was trying to do a mission. I was doing a mission in I forget what the map is called. I think it's Sweet Dreams or one of that, or Electric Sheep, one of those. No, not Sweet. Electric Sheep, I think, is the name of the map. And it's one of the city levels. And I finished. Remember that one where we had to plant all the bombs? It's that one.
Oh
where we
god.
first encountered the fucking helicopter.
That's like in fog that you can't. I didn't even
It's like
identify it was
outside
there
of
when
the
it killed
draw
me.
distance. I was so confused the first time I played it when I was like, "What the fuck is killing me?" And I'm like, "Oh, there's a helicopter patrolling this area that kills you instantly if you were within its sights." That so fun.
And they can see you in the fog and you can't see
Yeah.
them, which is super fun. Very cool way to introduce an enemy. Very good.
So, I was doing like a random mission there where it's like it drops you in, it spawns you, and it's like, here's some random objectives. Do this thing, plant this thing here, kill this person, hack this thing, whatever. It'll usually be like 3 objectives. And you do those. I was on my way to the final objective when I'm going through this corridor and there's a turret around the corridor. And I decided, hey, the coast is clear. Enemies didn't really go through the corridor. Why don't I try hacking? Why don't I try hacking the turret?
Oh no.
So I open the hacking menu. I start hacking the turret. I fail one time. I have an aneurysm and die, which resets the level. For some reason, I was completely out of resurrectors. And I tried to hack, and before I had full health, full energy, full mental balance. Failed to hack, died because of it. Reset the level, also reset all of my objective progress. I closed the game. I came back this morning to try last night. Was it? Something like that. To try it again. No, yeah, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. To try playing again. It was in the New Eden map, I think. Same deal. Like, okay, a couple different random objectives. I'm going through the map. The streets are gigantic. There's a billion sight lines. I'm using the strongest guns in the game. I have the spell that makes you telefrag through an enemy to like move around and kill people. I am going as fast as I can, doing as much damage as I can. The enemies I start running out of ammo. And the armory is like kind of like quite a ways away. The enemies are not dropping ammo for my gun for some reason, and they keep spawning. And I'm not getting ammo. So I just have to start like hacking away at them and using my like cloning ability so that my clones can kill the enemies. How did this session end? I think I just... What was it? Okay. I was, again, to the final objective. It's in, like, this little room. This little, like, side alley room. And you have to go in there and just kill... you have to destroy, like, this device. There's a turret in front of the device. I'm in the room. The turret keeps attacking me. I am out of ammo. I can't destroy it with a gun. So I have to try hacking it. Maybe. Or I could, like, maybe, I don't know, use my clones or something. There's also enemies constantly running into the room. I have to use my clones to kill them, or because I can't run out from behind this pillar I'm hiding behind, because the turret's going to kill me in 3 seconds. So I think I died like 3 times, and then I closed the game. It is so fucking hard to enjoy that game. It's like what doesn't want you to have fun. The game like doesn't want you to enjoy it.
Right.
So I was, and that's when like you messaged me shortly after, and were like, so I saw you were playing and I was like, this game fucking sucks. And then you felt, I could tell even over text, you were so smug. I was right, Tygan. I was like, yeah, you were right. You were right. This game, I'm sorry. I've seen roughly the end game, what it looks like of this game. It is fucking unfun. I mentioned to you the karma system, right? at
Yeah,
some
like
point during
that
our
shit
stream,
is stupid.
where the more enemies you kill, the more spawn. So it's just a nightmare. It's just chaos. And if you don't know the objectives, like, you had the benefit of me knowing what we had to do in basically every mission. I think they switch it
Yeah.
up sometimes, but I was like, okay, we have to go here, we have to do this now. The first time I played it, some of those missions took me hours to do because I didn't know what they meant. They were the objectives are not clear, and you're running around. You have to keep killing things because they're aggressing on you, which is making them spawn more. And it just like, literally, you put in such every single interaction has this baggage, which is such a that's such a good way of putting it. Like, the fucking, okay, even the guns, even if you think the guns feel good, there's this fucking accuracy stat that makes you just miss sometimes. You just miss, or I guess is it server lag? Like, who knows? Even though I'm just on like a private thing, so it shouldn't be. Like, sometimes you just miss because of the random dice roll. Using, you point out like the fucking energy system. Jesus, like, it's so annoying to manage energy because the maps are so big. The only way you can get around in any time at all is to sprint, and sprinting uses up energy pretty quickly, even when you're using like light armor, and you're probably not going to be in light armor the first time you play the game because you don't have a lot of endurance. And I've seen people point out like, oh no, it doesn't matter that the levels are big because you get spells that like lets you teleport around fast, but those also use energy that you have to wait for. And it's like, why does this mechanic exist? It's like, it's not, it's like the biggest, like, it's one of the most like ideas game. They had a bunch of ideas and there was like no thought put into whether or not it's actually enjoyable. They're just like, oh, well, it works. It's not that buggy. Leave it in the game. Or like, don't change it at all. And so I went and I looked up like, okay, so let me look at the Steam reviews. And it's so funny. If you go to the Steam page for the game right now, there's the store page. The first video they have, which I think is like the first thing in the little gallery that they have on the for the game on its store page, the video is like let's see, it's like basically like a 5-minute gameplay video of a multiplayer mode, and it's like the worst gameplay you've ever seen. The first 15 seconds, I just pulled it up. The first 15 seconds is someone sprinting, rounding a corner, and then immediately dying. I'm like, this is how you're presenting the game? It's the worst looking, it's so bad, and it's what the game is like. So I went and I looked up, like, what are the positive reviews? Because it's very positive. From 5,663 reviews at the time of speaking. That many reviews on Steam. And most of the positive... So, annoyingly, most of the positive reviews are just meme reviews where they just say, like... They say something really... Cyberpunk 40K. This guy has 3.5 hours on record. You don't even know. 6.5 hours, and it's just like, oh, it's like 40K and weird stuff and memes and lines and just references to the games from people who are like, there's no fucking actual like analysis of the games. So I'm like, okay, so where is this actual, where are the actual arguments? And most of them just point out the uniqueness or the amount of things in the game, which is my least favorite kind of review. I think, like, I mentioned this even a few episodes ago. One of my least favorite kinds of game reviews is just, well, this thing's in the game, it's got this thing, it's got this thing, it's got that thing. And there's no actual analysis of, like, okay, but, like, does it work? Does it coalesce into anything? No. Like, I feel like for a game, like, yeah, having like really crazy out there ideas and weird aesthetics, like that's cool and all, but like does it ever turn into something? Is it more than the sum of its parts or not? Like when a game has a system, when a game has a system that is just like the perfect, like tightest loop, like Tetris is like the go-to example for that. Like Tetris is just every system, every mechanic in Tetris, it's so simple, it's so small, and it just perfectly executes what it's trying to do. It's the small, contained system, and everything feeds into everything else. Everything is necessary for the game to function as it does, and it's like it works out gorgeously, and it's not doing anything that crazy, but it everything is justified. Everything has like thought put into it and like a reason for being there. I has all of these ideas, but they're so like haphazard and random, and I guess like it's almost like spectacle. I feel like a lot of the people who love this game just like they're just like blinded by the spectacle of how much weird shit is in it, and they can like I don't know, I guess they have like a really high bullshit tolerance or something. Like they just think it's cool. They must have a lot of patience like that.
They're probably the kind of people who would complain about Cyberpunk 2077, but then praise that game. And it's like, bro,
someone left a review Cyberpunk 2011.
Yeah, like,
which is like,
oh my god,
unintentionally very funny.
Yeah, it is pretty good. If you ever do make a second parter, you should just call it that, Cyberpunk 2011.
I am actually curious now because, so I mentioned to you that the creators of the game are very clearly big fans of Warhammer 40k.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways, like the whole eye thing is like, there's a lot of parallels to like Space Marines from 40k. There's monsters like the weird little guys who look just like Tyrannid, like Termagants. They look just like them. Like if I showed you like a picture of them, you'd be like, oh wow, that's just the thing. The whole like secret societies and the whole space thing, the gothic kind of aesthetic that's sort of there.
Yeah, I don't even know what Warhammer 40k is about, and I thought of Warhammer 40k when I thought of that game.
There's a really funny moment that I caught where, so in 40k, their version of like wizards are called psychers. And in there's like that library that has a bunch of terminals that just dump lore onto you.
Right.
And, usually when they refer to people with like PSI abilities, they would use some term like PSI enabled or something like that. And there's like one sentence where they use the term psycher, and I'm like, oh, the author just slipped. It was like a Freudian slip where he used like, okay, they want these, this is them ripping on like psychers from 40k, and he just forgot to like change it to their own term or whatever. So many parallels to them. The metastronomic force, which they flip-flop what the spelling of that is constantly throughout the game, is very much like the warp from 40k, like a ton of shit. They ended up, if you look up what Strumon Studios has done, they did well, besides their like, I guess like they did some like Half-Life mods and stuff like that before. I think their one thing before they did was a Half-Life 2 multiplayer mod, which is really interesting that they just jumped straight into this. The next thing they did afterwards, the only other two games that they've really worked on are both 40k games. They did 40k Space Hulk Deathwing, and they did Necromunda Hired Gun. And Deathwing is a multiplayer shooter, and Hired Gun is a single player. It's a single player immersive sim. And I'm actually, if I was going to do a part 2 or like a follow up to the video, I think it would probably be on those games, because I'm genuinely really curious as to how they compare to I. Because like there's a clear splitting of ideas, and obviously they just wanted to make 40K games. There's a clear splitting of ideas into those, and there's elements from both within those games, which I think, like, I haven't really seen that much gameplay of them. I've heard like kind of mixed decent things about them, but I'm like genuinely really curious. Maybe we could play Deathwing together.
Oh god, I don't know if I want to play a game. Yeah, fuck it, whatever. Yeah. Jesus
it's
Christ.
More of wait, is it Deathwing or Dreadwing? Hold up. It is Deathwing. There it is. Okay. Yeah. That's I have officially turned around on I. I was kind of in the middle. I was a bit of a fence sitter. Now I could say, like, I genuinely don't like the game. Like, I think it's really fucked up.
And this question spawned from our playthrough of it on stream.
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
Do you want to go back to it?
What I want to... Yeah, that was literally... Because I was like, I was having kind of a fun time kind of, like, laughing at your suffering, to be honest. Because, like, he doesn't know. He doesn't know how bad... If only you knew how bad things really were.
But then at the same time, you were thinking to yourself, this game's not that bad. It's pretty mixed.
It's, like, weird. It was a very different experience to go through it with someone else. I was like, it was more like I want to devote some more time to actually thinking about the game. Because I feel like playing it with you, it reminded me of the game, but it also skewed my perspective a bit. And yeah, that was the impetus. That was like, I should just revisit it for a few hours. And now here we are. I'm a certified I hater.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was an I hater pretty much within about 2 or 3 hours of playing the game. Which is funny. It's always like around the 3-hour mark. Yeah, that's basically where everyone agrees. Like, okay, this game already falls apart by like the 3-hour mark. Like, it already just hits walls. Very obviously.
Do you think that Steam should like because Steam's refund policy is 2 hours.
I don't think that's enough.
Oh yeah.
I genuinely don't think 2 hours is enough to like diagnose like whether you actually like a game or not. But I know what would happen. People would just finish the fucking game and then refund it and not play it again. But
I feel like any game that's less than like 2 or 3 hours is like. I don't think they were even charging that much to begin with. I feel like that's kind of niche. Like the overwhelming majority of games are going to be like at least 8 hours, I would imagine.
I mean the fact they have a refund policy is pretty cool because, I mean, I don't know. Imagine trying that shit in like the 90s. Like, I hate this fucking game.
Yeah, you could do that, I think. Oh, you mean like with PC games? Well, actually, yeah, I think you could.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it probably wasn't as easy as now. Like, here it's like, okay.
You gotta drive to the store.
Yeah.
Ew, driving to the store. Ew, leaving the house.
Imagine ordering Doom though, and you.
Oh
live
yeah,
in, like,
and it
fucking
comes
California.
to you in like an envelope.
Yeah, and you live in like California or like New York or like bumfuck nowhere and like Midwest, and like you wanted a refund. Like, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good thing that. What do you mean episode 2 is not actually that good?
Oh man.
Yeah, when I replay Doom, I will play either if I want to play like the whole thing again, I'll just skip episode 2. I don't care. I don't like it. I hate Halls of the Damned. And that's like the second level too. Like the drop off from episode 1 to episode 2 of Doom is crazy. And it kind of starts to come back together in 3, and 3 actually has my favorite Doom level, which is E3M6 Mount Erebus. But yeah, I feel like a lot of old FPS games have that problem.
Act 2 sucks, basically.
Yeah, like the reasoning for that basically was that yeah, I remember they were very smart about this because id was already doing like the shareware model with like the Commander Keen games and all that, where they would have like multiple episodes and stuff like that with like 8 or 9 levels each. So they knew what you did was, this is very smart. So the first level, this is like I think that John Romero even said this, that like the first level or like the opening of the game should be the part you design last. Because at that point you know everything else. You're like you have enough experience working with the game that you can create a good opening level that's like, it's the best, it should be the best thing you have to offer, should be in the opening. So episode 1 of Doom and Doom 2 and, well, not Doom 2, but like Quake, those were all developed like last. Like the first third of all those games was the last thing they did.
It's actually really smart.
Yeah, and then episode 2 is the part they actually designed first. And you can tell. And it gets slightly better in Doom 2, but in Doom 1, ooh, the drop off is like, ooh, this game, it's not the worst thing in the world, but like it sags. It really sags. And then around episode 3, you're like, oh, it's kind of starting to get better. And then it ends with a very mediocre, underwhelming boss fight. Because episode 1 was the shareware version. That was the free demo. You play that, you're like, holy shit, this game's awesome. I gotta get the whole thing now. And then it's
right.
Yeah, I don't want to say scammy, because I don't think that's what it was, but that's just how it was. I don't think they were like malicious with that. Honestly, they were just smart. Like Doom 1 or like Doom episode 1, I think was so crazy prolific. That was the stat that like in 1996 or something, or 95, Doom was on more computers than Windows. It was so universal.
Damn.
Yeah, that's why.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons Microsoft was thinking of buying id. It's also one of the reasons that DirectX exists. Have I ever told you that story?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, cool. So, this is a fun one. So, basically, Gabe Newell and the other guy who founded Valve, whose name I don't remember.
He was from Microsoft, I believe.
Yeah, they both worked at Microsoft
Yeah.
in the 90s. And at the time, so basically the way that the market kind of worked was that Apple was they marketed more towards creatives and not as much towards business people. I actually remember my dad saying that, like, in the 90s when he was like doing professional like economics work and stuff like that, he loved the Apple interface, but they didn't have the programs that he needed to like do his work, so he had to stick to Windows, because Windows they catered to all the business people with like, oh, you need your spreadsheets, you need this, you need that, we've got it. And that was kind of their main market, was the professional scene. Also, computers were really expensive still back then. So it was more like, oh, like an adult is buying this. You are buying this as a work machine. It wasn't just like, oh, just get like a family computer. The gaming side of PC, of like PC ownership, and Apple too, was more of a hobbyist thing. It was more of like, oh, you're really, it's basically a side thing that they didn't have a whole ton of support for. They're like, oh yeah, you can play games on it if you so choose, but that's more for like, oh, you're kind of like the niche market of people who are buying this because you just really like computers. It's a hobbyist thing. Apple, the Apple II was actually a very popular machine for game developers, because it had, at the time when it came out, it had a much more robust graphics capabilities, basically. More colors. And if you're making a game and you want it to stand out, being able to make it look really good was kind of the main way you did that. So, oh shit, we got a bunch of colors we can work with on the Apple II. Apple ended up alienating a lot of PC developers because they switched over from, or a lot of game developers, because they switched from using BASIC as their programming language to a proprietary language called AppleSoft BASIC, which made it much harder to port your game to other systems. So most game developers ended up, I forget when exactly they made the change, but it was sometime in the early 90s, I believe. Maybe like late 80s. Most developers, given the choice, switched to developing for the IBM compatibles, so to speak, because I mean, it's in the name, it's IBM compatible. If you can develop a game for a DOS platform, it's way easier to then port it over to a Commodore system, or an Atari 8-bit system, something like that. I'm sure it was, still a process and all that, but compared to an Apple, something that's running AppleSoft BASIC, much easier. So Apple kind of gave up a lot of their gaming support. And that's why I think still that decision is the reason why Mac is such an obscure thing for, like, if you want to do like gaming, Mac is not your first choice, basically, even today. Like, that decision still has consequences for the market. So Windows kind of had like a corner on the game developers, on the gaming market for home computers, but they weren't really catering to it. So Gabe and the other guy, who I'm sorry, but his name escapes me, basically said, hey, there's this like big market that we could tap into. Like, look, and Doom was like the game that they used to basically pitch this. Doom is super popular. If we get something to work on the, if we can get Doom to work on the new like Windows 95, we could get a huge like market that we didn't have before, and we could actually start developing this as a selling point for our Windows systems compared to Apple. So instead of buying id, they didn't go through with that. They started working on DirectX. DirectX, the original version of DirectX 1.0, was originally developed specifically to run Doom. It was so they could get it running, and that's where like WinDoom comes in. That was like the specific version to be compatible with Windows 95, because the original was just DOS. So all like the whole lineage of like Microsoft gaming, or Microsoft support for gaming, with like DirectX and all that, would not have happened without Doom. It's integral to like gaming history in that way. And then of course later they would leave. Actually, that's why they got the Source engine. That's that's how you get like Gold Source, is because the Valve founders were in contact with like John Carmack. John Carmack told Gabe Newell that he should start a video game company.
Right.
He literally was like, hey, you guys are pretty good. You guys should start doing that. And then I think, who was his name? Michael Abrash was a colleague of theirs at Microsoft who left to join, was it id? Or somewhere else? I can't remember at the moment. And that inspired them to go solo and form Valve. So like, yeah, Doom is like crazy important for the look, the shape of modern PC gaming. Yeah, I love that story. Thank you for letting me tell it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, I always kind of wanted to do more research on DirectX and exactly what it is, but I'm sure the basics is just it's a thing that lets games directly just work off Windows. That's pretty much the basic, it seems. It's like a
collection. It's a collection of application programming interfaces for handling tasks related to multimedia. especially game programming and video on Microsoft
Yeah.
platforms. It's basically like a bundle of different APIs that it's things to make other things work.
Right, there's a bunch of that.
Yeah, first initial release date, September 30th, 1995.
Right, which
So like, yeah.
shortly before Quake.
Yeah, shortly before Quake, and when Doom 2 was still on shelves. Yeah, it was on shelves.
And I think Quake was also a DOS program, but they made WinQuake. So
Yeah, because a lot of people hadn't. I think a big part of the market hadn't moved to Windows yet.
Yeah,
So,
I guess that must have been like Windows 98 and like XP, where people just stopped using DOS.
yeah,
Majority.
probably reached like end of life or something. Or was that even a thing back then? I guess they had like the update or the service packs or something like that, or like DOS 3.0.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's not really the same thing.
I'm guessing XP might have been like the death of DOS. Like once they moved into NT instead of 9X.
Yeah. In some, I mean, there's still DOS in Windows.
Right.
That's why there's all these.
Not as
That's why
prevalent.
Yeah, that's why there's all these like archaic menus that still exist even in like Windows 11. It's because like there's
They
just
still have
legacy
floppy disk
code
support.
that no one's allowed to touch. Like if you touch that, the fucking government stops working, literally.
Yeah, they still support, like, I think I've told you the A and B drive on your computer is for, like, those letters are reserved for floppy disks.
Yep, it's for like physical disk drive floppy disks.
Yeah, I think Windows 11 probably still supports floppy disks.
Which is great. I like that. Like it kind of creates like a certain amount of baggage, but I like that it exists at least.
Yeah, good luck
That I
getting
can-
your old ass programs to work on them though. Like
Yeah,
on
you
your
need like
floppies.
DOSBox or compatibility mode exists. It's not perfect. Yeah, I like that I can still use. You brought up Windows PowerShell. I had to use that a little while ago for it to get a thing to work.
Yeah.
And I like that I can still use the same commands that I know from DOSBox. I can use CD, I can use dir, and I can be in business, and it still works. And they have like their newfangled commands, but I could still use the old ones, which is pretty
yeah,
great.
if you want to use any DOS system, you better know what CD and dir
Yeah.
does.
Which you could find that out if you go to my second channel where I recently uploaded a quick starter guide on how to use DOSBox to play games. There's only like 3 commands that you need to know, and they're really simple. Go check it out. It's like a 5-minute video. But I also I put like a little my goal with that video was like I realized just like in the shower one day that you could probably fit all the information you needed to know on like a little flashcard or like a really simple just little guide. So I made one, and that's the start of the video. That's the quick start. It's just here's the 3 commands, here's how you use them. And then the rest of the video, the rest of like the 5 minutes is me explaining how and why you do everything, which also doesn't take that long. Again, like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like so there's a YouTuber I really like named 3 Clicks Philip, and
Oh, yeah, I know
so he makes, people probably know him primarily for Counter-Strike, but I know him primarily from making tutorials on source mapping, and his main reason for making source map tutorials is because every time he looked up what to do on like a source thing, like where he wanted to map something for Counter-Strike, the tutorial sucked. Like they always like made it too long, and they always added all this information that you didn't need to know, and they didn't show you the effect you were trying to get first, so you didn't know if you were even looking at the right video.
God.
So
would he do that? Would he like show the thing first thing in the video? Like here's how you do this
later
lighting or
on,
something?
yes. Like
Okay.
he shows you the effect, and he says how to do it. He doesn't go on this whole long rant that's like, oh, here's why you want to do this, which is like the most dumbass
You already
shit
know
ever.
why you want to do it.
Yeah,
You're
you
looking
search
up the
for
video.
this. Yeah, like,
dude, I feel that with like Premiere tutorials.
holy shit.
So
Jesus
like
Christ.
there's I feel pretty comfortable using Premiere, but there's still lots of stuff that I learn how to do, or just like, you know, less so now, but there's still things that's like, okay, can I do this? Can I do this like weird blending thing or something like that? And there's so many videos. Thankfully, there's a lot that are like pretty snappy, but the best ones is like, because sometimes I don't know how to like describe what I want, right? Like maybe there's a term for it, but I don't know exactly like, oh, tracking behind object in frame or something. Like, how do I describe that in like a YouTube search? And the best thing is when people show the effect right at the start, just right at the start, so I know this is or isn't what I want to do. Because otherwise I have to like click through it. I gotta watch it at like 2 times speed, or something like that. Or the worst is like getting halfway through and realizing that it's not what you're looking for, and it's like a 8-minute video, and I'm like, oh my god. Oh yeah, that's cool that he does that, because that's, in my opinion, that's like, that should just be like guide etiquette.
Right.
Like, I don't need to explain. You shouldn't have to explain why I would want to do something. Like, this isn't like a Skillshare course. I already know why I want to do it, because I want to have an effect in my video where this looks like that. Just show me. Oh god, yeah.
Right, yeah.
God bless him.
Because, like, yeah, I have watched my fair share of really shitty tutorials back then, and it kind of made me think that, like, things were just harder than they seemed. Like, I was afraid of Adobe shit for a long time when I was younger, of, like, editing in general. Like, oh, keyframing sounds scary. No, it's
it's
really
not actually
fucking
that hard.
easy. Yeah, it's very simple, and there's just, like, a few things you need to know, and, like, just a few things. You have to know what you want as well. Like, you should have a decent idea.
That's true.
It's too general to even like put a use case for, honestly. Like, keyframing is used for an unbelievable amount of shit. Like, some examples is a simple fade out, or like an image moving on screen, or fade in. Just a lot of bullshit.
Anything that moves, or an effect that, or anytime, if you're listening to this and you've never touched video editing, every time you're watching a video and there's like an element on screen, like an image or a clip, and it like changes in some way, shrinking or moving or changing color, everything besides literally like a video clip progressing that already exists, that's a keyframe. That's someone keyframed a start and an end point for that effect. And it's actually not too difficult. It's actually, I was surprised when I started editing. It's fairly intuitive to just like, here's at the start, here's at the end, here's where I want it. And then and there's like little tricks that I've figured out, like doing, like ease in and ease out, which you could just click automatically. You can just click a thing in there in the.
Yeah, I've never actually done that before.
Yeah. It's just, and it's small, but it adds a nice little thing. Just like just having the movement be a little smoother and less robotic, unless you want it to look robotic or something, is nice. What I've noticed is also like, or what I also kind of like to do is, if I have something kind of flip on the screen, a little like bounce or momentum to it. So like, hey, if I want to have this thing zoom to the center of the screen from the left, like coming in from off screen, I'll have it go to the center, but then it'll pass it a little bit, like a little further to the right for like a frame or two, and then settle back into the center. And it has this kind of nice momentum to it. So it doesn't feel like a robotic, just kind of like just moving from one location to the next. Just these like little touches that you wouldn't think add some just it looks smoother. And it's I don't know, better, I guess. I like it more.
Yeah, there's always the little things that kind of make a huge difference sometimes. Like in my
Oh yeah.
my dystopia map, I utilize lighting for like a very specific effects and like spacing of it and how bright something is somewhere. And because like I don't think people understand, there's like such little things that were not just set up automatically like in video games to like help you realize what you fucking need to do without saying exactly what you need to do, which is always like beautiful in my opinion. When it all just seamlessly flows together without the game literally telling you, hey fucking idiot, you need to turn around and go this way. Like usually there's other cues and stuff. Kind of related to what you're talking about, but not really. I guess I would call it a cue, like of like, hey, look, there's like a new thing that you should probably be looking at, and
Oh yeah.
it's more pronounced now because it has like this bouncy animation instead of, a linear one that you might overlook perhaps. Like maybe it just
Yeah. Or it's placed
pops
in a
out more.
location where, like, the first time you walk into this room, you're looking straight at this thing. And it looks different. It stands out in some way. Or creating, like, a visual language is really useful. Actually, funny enough, talking about, like, Doom mapping... I don't know if a lot of people realize this if you've played a lot of Doom, but stuff in like the Doom like level editor, which I've messed around in, there aren't like, besides like literally like players, enemies, pickups, there aren't like objects in Doom. It's just textures, and then it's textures that you place over lines, and then you assign behaviors to those lines. And like you can put, like when there's a teleporter in Doom, that's just like a teleporter texture, and then you just walk over a line, and that line is what actually has the function to teleport you. So there's people who do not properly assign like traits to certain textures or things like that, and it gets really confusing because the whole visual language gets thrown out of whack. Like, why is there a switch? Why is the torch a switch? Was something I ran into when I streamed episode 4 of Doom the other day. Why is the torch a switch to this? I don't even think it's a secret. I think it's like a necessary part of the level. Like, why isn't it just a switch? There's like 5 switch textures in the game. Like that stuff, I get what you mean. Not from the I haven't actually done any mapping myself, but like, yeah, actually being able to communicate things to a player is like crazy, especially in a game. Because if it's in like a film, any other medium, they're all pretty much like, well, yeah, of course, there's a line here, or there's like a scene here. Like, there's no way the audience isn't going to run into it, but in a game, you can walk right past something and never see it.
Right. And yeah, consequently, like that, so, and like even in my videos, and I think we've talked about this, but we've added details that have not been noticed by anybody, and we just laugh about it.
As far as I know, yeah, there's at least 2 jokes I can think of off the top of my head that I have never seen anyone point out.
I mean, maybe someone's seen it, but like they just
maybe someone got it. It was either like, it was some like really deep references. I feel like if someone got it, they would have left a comment, kind of thing. And never heard about it. I'm not going to say what they are. You can go looking for them.
There's a lot of that in like the video I'm working on. There's like quite a few little dumb references and jokes that I kind of say in a dry way sometimes, so it doesn't even sound like a joke. And some people are probably going to hear it and be like, what the fuck? Like, or people are going to hear it and be like, why? I didn't expect to hear that today. Like, I it's a coincidence. I like that and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Just quite a few referential deals, memes, whatever.
Yeah. Fuck, we've been going for like 2 hours.
Yeah, and I still. Oh, Jesus. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. That was a huge yawn, but. Yeah, I have my stream in 45 minutes. Gonna be streaming some Resident Evil Village, the 8th game, for the first time.
Cool. Hey, they just took out de novo from it.
Did they?
Yeah, that was like a news story this week. They just removed de novo.
Is that like the big chick or whatever?
No, de novo is the DRM.
Wait, the DR. So wait, what the fuck? The DRM. So you're
Yeah,
talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about fucking when you install the game, it comes with de novo.
I don't know what de
which
novo
is like an anti-piracy DRM shit.
Right, I know what DRM is.
That
I just didn't know what de novo
that people
was.
hate because it's
Right.
like fucking. I don't know if it's like kernel level. There's like a kernel level version of de novo, but Capcom does it for all their shit. It's annoying. They just took it out this week, so that's so fucking funny. No, that's Lady Dimitrescu.
Yeah,
Lady
whatever,
de
close
Nouveau.
enough.
Holy shit, that's such a funny idea.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that
guys.
the big lady?
Yeah, so there you go. You got like the. You guys can make fan art or whatever.
Lady de Nouveau.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gave me pushback the other day on your stream when I made a joke about you only knowing 5 things.
We just talked about like more than 5 things.
Pardon?
We talked about more than 5
I know,
things
but
on
like
the stream.
when I make like a reference to something, you like I feel like you never know what I'm making a reference to.
I don't feel like, I don't know. I almost feel as if part of that is you haven't talked to enough people, because I'm not. That's not like an insult. It's just
Prox,
like
no.
but,
Hang on, you're gonna stop right there. You gave me pushback on that the other night, and like 2 minutes later, we found out you didn't know who the Dalai Lama was.
I'm almost positive if you like walked up to random people on the street and asked them, they probably wouldn't know either.
Oh my god! Leave a comment below if you know who the Dalai Lama is.
Like literally, just go to like random people. Like, well, maybe like 4chan would probably know, but I don't know.
Oh my god. He's the leader of Tibetan Buddhism. Like the 4th largest world religion.
Well, I'm a very non-religious person. There's probably quite a few people our age who has no idea. Like, they don't even know, like, the principles of Buddhism. I don't. Like, I know there's, like, rebirth and shit, but...
I know you don't have to know, but you at least know, like, you know who the Pope is. You know?
Well, the news always, like, talks about him. It's, like, really hard
But you know, like, that there is a Pope. You've heard of the Pope.
Yeah, I know there is a Pope, and he has something to do with Catholic memes, but... Like, Americans are, like, never talking about Buddhism. They're talking about Catholic stuff, though, because, like, I know Christians are, like, cool with the Pope or whatever.
Christians
yeah, some
are
of them
cool
are.
with the Pope.
Yeah, like, not just Catholics, but... It's kind of a weird relationship, but anyway, yeah.
Alright. We're gonna call it there.
Sure.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you so much if you've been listening to us this long. Well, I guess this episode's going to go up tomorrow, so you won't be able to catch Prox's stream. But check out the main channel, I have a Patreon. I have the second channel. There's the Clips channel. I got too much shit going on. Leave a comment. Feel free to, if you have a question, please feel free to leave it down below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I've been Tygan. Prox has been Prox. Say goodbye, Prox.
Yes, goodbye. Thank you for joining the Epic Podcast, episode 95.
Yeah. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Yes.